Just a few years ago, in Swat Valley, Pakistan, lived a young, aspiring girl who loved school, and like many of us, wanted to be successful. But unlike us, when the Taliban took control of her town, everything from owning a television to females attending school was forbidden. Shortly after, she began promoting her message, and her activism spread all around her country. It was this moment she became a target. As her activism continued, so did her message, and at the age of 15, she was shot in the head on her way home from school. Now, if this story sounds familiar, that's because it's the story of Malala Yousafzai, the fearless human rights activist and the youngest recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize. Malala's story is merely one of the many that describe the unsettling reality of gender inequality that is still present today. Malala was never meant to amount to anything. In fact, she was never even supposed to receive an education. Malala stands as a reminder to all of us that the only way forward is to never settle. According to the United Nations, 14 million girls will become a child bride in the next decade. Not only that, but 130 million girls under the age of 18 are unable to attend school. In Nigeria, a husband can legally beat his wife for the purpose of correcting. More than 1 billion women do not have protection against sexual violence, and in 18 nations, females must get their husband's permission to get a job. Now, all these facts may sound surprising, but they are merely scratching the surface on the gender inequalities that remain in the 21st century. But living in Canada, it's easy to think that we are a model for gender equality. But unfortunately, we too are far from it. Over half of all Canadian females have said that they have experienced at least one incident of physical or sexual abuse. Not only that, but for every dollar a man makes, a woman receives 87 cents for the exact same job. But what is worse? No, not another statistic. The fact that when people still hear the word feminism, they think, oh no, not another man-hater. Or perhaps we're still talking about this. But ladies and gentlemen, the rise of women does not mean the fall of men. And until we recognize this fact, we can never move forward. Now, I'm not here to bombard you with statistics, to make you pity women, or to even attempt to solve such an epidemic. Instead, I'm here to show you that although there is so much farther to go in this fight, by instilling confidence in women one day at a time, eventually we will be valued the same as men. Now, you may be wondering, why should you listen to an 18-year-old private school student? Well, because of my privileges, I want to use the voice that I am lucky enough to have to spread this universal message, in hopes that you all do the same for the women in your life. So why do we want gender equality? Well, other than the fact that it seems fair, according to the United Nations, if men and women were more equal, we could increase the global GDP by $12 trillion over the next decade. Not only that, but the countries who have the highest equality, like Latvia, Luxembourg, Sweden, Denmark, France, and Belgium, are ranked higher on the happiness scale and are usually more economically powerful. So how do we actually achieve gender equality? Well, I think the first step is by following in the footsteps of women who've paved our way thus far. Susan B. Anthony was one of the first leaders of the suffrage movement in the United States. She spoke all around the country to get the right to vote. Shortly after her death, women received the vote in the US. Emmeline Pankhurst was one of Britain's leading female rights activists, who went on hunger strikes and was arrested on several occasions to gain the vote. Jamie Black, a Métis artist who started the Red Dress Project to advocate for the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls in Canada. Gloria Steinem was the founder and editor of one of the first feminist magazines. She also spoke on behalf of the Equal Rights Amendment to the United States Senate. Oprah Winfrey. After suffering sexual abuse as a child, Oprah Winfrey has not only been an inspiration to girls around the world because of her talk show, but also because she was the first Black female billionaire. And finally, Roberta Bondar, the first Canadian woman in space. She was long deemed inferior to men in a male-dominated profession. Not only has she broken these stereotypes, but continues to inspire women and girls today to do the same. Now, one commonality among all of these women is that they have all not been invited to sit at the same table as men, but they haven't let that define them. Equality has never and will never come without work. Mary Frances Berry, a civil rights activist, once said, "No movement happens overnight. You have to make people, politicians, and leaders do things. If you wait around for change, we won't get anywhere. We won't end inequality, and we won't get justice in this country." People will respect and commend you for standing up and being a leader to those around you. The more female role models we have to look up to, the more inspired future generations will become. In life, it is a very real possibility that you may not be given the same opportunities as a man. You may not be given a seat at the table. But if there is one thing that you can learn from my speech today, and from all of these amazing women, is that if you aren't invited to the table, sometimes you have to pull up a chair. Thank you.